me go ahead and get us started. Perfect. Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing start to your day. Welcome to the fourth quarter. We are officially in October. Now, I always say October is a little bit like real estate New Year's because we know that in real estate, everything happens on what we call a 90-day cycle. This is really the jump point of how we maximize the end of the year, my friends. You have about a little less than 60 full days, not business days, right? But a little than 60 full days to put something in escrow and still have it close by the end of the year. So I know that's a lot, but I wanted to go ahead and just note that as we kind of get started. We have a lot to cover today. Now, a couple things are going to happen today that are a little bit different than what we usually do. Obviously, last week, I went through the national market update. Right now, it is the 3rd of the month. And so the data for last month, for September, it has not been released yet, right? And so there is no ability for us to say, also, we're 3 days into the month. It's not worth us showcasing, hey, what does it look like when we are looking at, September versus October when we're 3 days into the month and it's the first working business day of the month, right? So it's going to be a little bit different when we go over here today. What we are going to be looking at is, I was thinking about what would be most valuable for all of you in terms of kind of looking at the information around some of the trends that we are seeing in the market. And what I decided to do is actually go back in terms of data, going back 3 years, right? So we are currently in 2022. 2020 and 2021 were kind of that pandemic timeframe that we had, and then kind of looking back a little bit further than that. So that's what we're going to be looking at today in terms of the update. Of course, Telephone Consumer Protection Act, mandatory disclosure site. Please make sure you utilize whatever information we share with you today on the basis of being TCPA friendly, my friends. All right, before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about KW Cares. I think KW Cares is an incredible organization within our company. What KW Cares does, and so I want to give you a little synopsis, and then I'm going to talk to you about why I'm sharing this. What Keller Williams Cares is within KW, we know that the moment that we stop working in a commission-based industry, unless we own property that is making us money, right? Unless our business is running at a very phenomenal extent and that it carries on without us and covers multiple markets, then we know we stop working, we stop making money. And sometimes things happen that mean we cannot work, right? And what KW Cares does is there's a couple of different programs within it. The one that is most relevant right now is the emergency grant program, as well as our KW Cares truck, which carries a lot of emergency supplies for when areas are hit with major catastrophes, major emergencies. And then the grants, which are issued to people in these type of emergency situations, so that when they have nothing else, they're able to find food, water, shelter, and supplies very, very quickly. We also then have a financial needs grant, which is a little bit more in depth for when kind of one-off situations occur. The reason that I'm talking about this right now is twofold. Many of you know that we've had, thankfully not here in our area, but especially out in Florida, in that East Coast area, we've had 2 entire regions of KW that were impacted by major hurricane weather out there. And so there are individuals that have lost their home, they've lost their livelihood, and they don't have anything else. Now, KW Cares is sending the trucks out to help with supplies. But what they have also done, and I think that this was an amazing initiative, is they said, how can we support in a combination way, right? How can we say, hey, Keller Williams, we need your help so that we can help those of our brothers and sisters in Keller Williams out there that have lost everything, right? Some people have lost everything, but that have lost shelter, livelihood, etc. And how can we do so and also give back to you and your business, right? And so what they've decided to do is on October 6th, there's going to be an amazing, amazing event. Yes, it starts early, right? 10 a.m., not our time, that's Central Time. So it should be about 7 a.m. here. And it'll go to, I want to say 2:30 is about 11:30 our time. It is going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal event called Multiply Your Business. What Multiply Your Business is it is a one-day event that is featuring our chairperson, Ms. Mo Anderson, Mark King, Gary Keller, and tons of Gary's top agents are going to be sharing their secrets for success, right? When I say there's going to be some phenomenal, phenomenal guest speakers, you have a couple of people that I have actually had the opportunity to hear speak. Dan Holtz, I've had a chance to hear him speak. His team is going to be talking. Jay Papasan, who is one of the co-authors of all of the KW books and co-contributors and has an amazing, amazing business model, is going to be speaking. I've had the chance to hear Mark King, our president, speak. He will be speaking. There's going to be a lot of really phenomenal, phenomenal individuals. The entire schedule is they're going to be doing a couple things. They're going to have an open and a welcome. They're going to talk about marketing your way to $1 million. They're going to be having a conversation with Jay Papasan, which is a lot of conversations about wealth. So there's going to be a conversation about building wealth through real estate, building an unforgettable brand, dominating the competition, hiring mistakes and how to avoid them. How do you hit 3 million in GCI in less than 5 years from my dually? Understanding how to list and sell with the DISC profile, how to build a $100 million real estate team, secrets to thriving at home in your business. Somebody's going to be sharing their bulletproof buyers consultation and how they filter out the motivated and how they identify gaps in the business. This is going to be an amazing event. And it's a donation-based ticket to get in, right? There is a early bird ticket that started at $20. There is a $25 minimum donation if you get the general admission tickets to get in. And everything that you contribute to this will go to support our KW family that is currently undergoing, some major, major challenges out in Florida. So I am posting the link in the chat. It's 100x.kwcares.org/2022. Okay, so 100, the numbers, x.kwcares.org/2022. So sharing that amazing event, I highly recommend it, and you'll be helping our KW family. And the reason that this is so incredibly important, right? Of not just, hey, we've got an amazing business as we are here in the fourth quarter of the year so that we can really get a handle on what is going on with your business. But the greater purpose behind it is we are helping our Keller Williams family. And what I know to be true is this, is should anything ever happen here, the hope would be that our brothers and sisters out there are also doing the same. So again, really important here, and also foundation of our culture, my friends. All right, with that, for Mortgage Minute, I actually have a quick update. We're not going to go over what the rates look like today, and I don't have a guest for today. With that being said, though, I do want to talk about what is happening with interest rates, what is happening in the mortgage industry right now. We know that interest rates are high, right? For what they have been in recent times, right? So not interest rates are higher than they've ever been, because that is not the case, right? Interest rates are not higher than they've ever been. They're higher than they've been in the last year, right? They're higher than they've been in the last year, in the last 12 months. And that's an incredibly important distinction as we look at mortgage rates. What is also really important about looking at our mortgage rates and what is happening right now and having these high rates that exist in the real estate market is a couple things, is understanding that in the past, when inflation has been as high as it is, interest rates have hit past 16% in the 80s, right? That has happened. Interest rates, they shift on this sort of trajectory that very much correlates to what is happening in our economy. And that's an important to understand. Aside from that, what's incredibly important for you to understand as the real estate agent is that if the interest rate is going to be that thing that makes or breaks a deal, then what are the negotiating tools that we have when it comes to the rate during a transaction so that we can either get into more deals or two, so that we can negotiate those deals that are on the verge of maybe falling apart because of something happening with the rates. That's going to be really important. In fact, in the book Shift, KW Shift book, right, there is a whole section on what we call creative financing, right, as being a problem solver in bulletproofing our transactions. So what are some of those options? Well, non-mortgage options are things like seller financing, right? And having the seller actually carry a percentage of that loan or the full loan, so that they're able to make additional income off the interest rate that they opt to have. Sometimes we're able to negotiate a lower interest rate in those cases. That if we are going with traditional lender, then we need to understand things like knowing that there are some opportunities like the 2-1s or mortgage rate buy downs, right? Where we can negotiate into contract with the client that we may be able to buy down that rate. Seller might be willing to buy down that rate. Lender can do some rate buy downs. The client themselves can do some rate buy downs. But it's important to have that conversation to get the rate to a more manageable place. And then the third that I want to share, because one of our agents just did this very creative kind of financing option, is one of the things that happened was they had the purchase price that they put the offer in at, right? And the property appraised higher. Now, that's not always going to happen, right? This is not always going to happen. But in this particular instance, the property appraised higher than what the original purchase price was. And in order to make it make more sense for the buyer, right, because they were having some challenges, the rate had just gone up, right? The rate had just gone up, and all of a sudden they were getting a little bit nervous about whether they were going to be able to utilize this. Is they used some of that equity that they already had gained in the home based on purchase price to do some creative things on rate buy down. So there's some really interesting things that you can do, that it's important to have that conversation with your lender. Now, I will say this: if you have a pre-approval that you have not updated in the last 2 weeks, in the last 30 days, then you need to be talking to the mortgage professional for your clients that are currently searching for homes, so that it is not a surprise if there was a rate change that has occurred. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over here. All right, we got a lot to cover here, my friends. So we're gonna dig in. We're gonna dig deep. We're gonna share a lot of information here. We are looking at LA County first, and I'm gonna note, my friends, I'm sorry if the numbers are a little bit small on your screen, but because we're looking at more data, I wanted to share a little bit more here. The slides are going to look a little bit wonky, so bear with me, my friends, okay? What I really wanted to look at here, and I think that this is really important. So we look at our sales trends for sale and sold. And generally when we're looking, we are looking at what is happening month over month, right? So we can see that this number that is sold went up very slightly. And then the number of properties that were for sale, so the amount of inventory on the market, went down a little bit, right? Right here. But this was still feeling very high, right? When we looked at a year ago and we look at what was going on literally last year, right? Right over here, the number of properties for sale, this jump of 28.6, damn, that felt like a lot, right? Because we aren't used to that. It's been a while. Since we've seen the number of properties for sale go up as significantly as they had here. When we look at 821 right over here, and they're much lower, and the number of properties that we're selling is higher, right? So this is important for us to look at, because if we go back another year, so this is 821, now let's look at 820, right? The number of properties for sale is a little bit more on par than what we are seeing in 2022, right? It's still the number of properties for sale. Now, the properties that we're selling, yes, that is a bit higher, right? But now let's look at 2019. And the number of properties for sale is significantly higher yet here, right? In fact, there are 18.4 less properties for sale, 18.4% less properties for sale now than there were in 2019 in this same month. Now, there was a little bit more sales that were occurring, right? This number is a little bit higher here, but we had more properties for sale. So this is important. And the reason that this is important is because it can be very, very easy to look at data from a year ago, from 2 years ago, and say, oh my gosh, there's so much less properties that are selling right now. Oh my gosh, there's so much more inventory on the market. Oh my gosh, we're having, now there's too much inventory. Now there's too much going on. And yet in 2019, all I kept hearing in the real estate market was we're having an inventory issue. We have an inventory shortage. And yet there was more properties for sale than there is right now, right? And so having that understanding is going to be really important. So again, as I mentioned, our slides are a little wonky today because I wanted to kind of fit all of this data, and it's a lot of information that we're looking at. So let's look at this here as well, right? We have the number of properties that are pended is our red line. And we can see it kind of went down right over here. Then we saw a big spike right over here. So right here, this is pandemic territory, right? This is right when we got into the pandemic. We saw a major dip in the number of properties that were pended. We also saw a big dip in the number of new listings that came on the market. And then they went up, and then they went down, and then they went up, right? And then they went down, and then they went up. And now we're seeing that kind of a little bit going down here as well, right? When we really look at the data, now, if I covered half of the screen, then it doesn't look the same, right? It looks like there's a major dip just happening right over here because we can't see all of this additional data that happens over here, right? And so as we kind of return to a more normal market, we're kind of returning to a post-pandemic market, right? Pandemic gave us very skewed numbers. Not just pandemic, but what was happening in the economy kind of skewed things here as well. So we know that if we look at the number of new listings, yes, still in the red, right? But current month versus the same month 2 years ago, 2 years ago was actually up 1.8. It is up 1.8%. If we look at this data over here, if we were looking a year ago, yeah, down 21.9%, but it's a little bit more even as we start, right? It goes down a little bit. Still less on the market, still less pendings than there were in 8-19, but we also have less inventory in the market. And we've been anticipating a little bit of that dip. Okay, so let's look at properties sold and properties for sale in terms of our pricing trends, right? In terms of our pricing trends, because this is also important, right? One of the things that we have been seeing recently is in talking about what is happening with equity, right? What is happening with equity? We know that in 2020 and 2021 especially, right? 2020 and 2021 especially, we saw some of the largest equity gains that have occurred in the history of the real estate market, right? What does that mean? It means property values went up at a rate that they have never gone up before, right? And some property values went up in a double-digit percentage increase, right, in equity. That is massive, right? That is massive. So then we start looking at what happened with price, Well, from 2019, prices went up. We saw a dip right when we hit pandemic territory, and then prices just kind of trickled back up, right? Then we saw a little dip right over here. What happened? There was an interest rate adjustment that happened right over here, but then prices started going up again. And now here again, we've had additional interest rate adjustments that have occurred, right? And we start seeing this sale price. So this is the properties for sale, right? This sale price go down. However, if we look at this from 3 years ago, we're in the green, right? We're in the green. It's still up 13.5% in terms of this average active price. It's higher than it was in 2019. We can see that right over here. What if we look at the sold price? Now, while the for sale price went up and down, right? So for sale price is the advertised price. That means when a property goes on the market, what is the price that was put onto the MLS? That's what we're looking at when we look at the green line. Now, this down here is what was the sold price? What did the properties on average actually sell for? And then we see a line that while it has dips and valleys, those dips and valleys are nowhere near the dips and valleys that we see right up here, right? Because the market dictates the price. When we look at this, if we're looking at 1 year difference, then the average sold price has gone down, which means that if somebody is looking, right, from 8/21 to 8/22, right? So August of 2021 to August of 2022, yeah, they lost 2.2% of that value. But if we look at 3 years ago, right? If we look at 3 years ago, that sold price is up 31.9%. That equity, right? That equity is still there. If we look at the full year, so current year versus the same 12 months, so we're looking at a 12-month period here, right? August 21 to August 22, compared to August of 20 to August of 2021. That's what we're looking at right over here, right? September to August. We can see that that average sold price still up 10.3%. So again, but if we look month over month, we have a dip. We look at year over year, August to August, we have a dip, right? So what does that conversation look like with a potential seller? Is, hey, we have good news and bad news, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right? The property, your average sold price in your area, yeah, it's gone down from last month. That's the bad news. The good news is in LA County, you have the average sold price in your area is 31.9% higher than it was 3 years ago. And yet we are seeing that average active price, the advertised price, go down. How long are you going to wait to take advantage of the equity that you've gained in your home, right? This number is big. This number is big. I'm going to know if you are writing anything down and you service LA County, then knowing what this average sold price increase was 3 years ago is incredibly important. And I'm gonna give you a second to write that down. 31.9%. Okay. All right. Absorption rates, right? Looking at our inventory. So we look at this slope right over here. We've seen inventory kind of jumping up right over here, and everybody's been like, oh my gosh, we're in a buyer's market now, right? Oh my gosh, there's so much inventory on the market. There's not that much inventory on the market. If we look at 3 years ago, there was more inventory on the market, right? This is higher than this point here, only a little bit, but it is still higher here, right? And yet in 2019, everybody was saying there's an inventory shortage. We're in a seller's market. There's an inventory shortage, right? There's not enough houses on the market. There's not enough inventory. Now, that also has to do with supply and demand. But what does absorption rate tell us? Absorption rate tells us how many months of inventory is on the market. So to put it in really simple numbers, if you have five people buying in a month, and there are 5 houses for sale in that month, you have 1 month of inventory. okay? If you have 5 buyers and there are 10 houses for sale, you have 2 months of inventory because there are 5 buyers per month, right? If you have 5 buyers and there's only 2 houses for sale, then you don't have enough inventory, and now we have pricing challenge, okay? So this is how absorption rate works. So saying that we're at a little bit less than 2.5 months of inventory, we're at about 2.3 months of inventory as of August in LA County. In 2019, we were a little bit lower. We were about actually almost the same, right? In 2019. August of 22, 2.3 months of inventory. August of 2019, 2.2 months of inventory in LA County. And everybody now is saying, oh, we're in this type of market. We're in that type of market. In 2019, everybody was saying we don't have enough inventory. So when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, right? This is important to put in perspective. Now, considering that we didn't see this major increase until pandemic, and then it went down and it stayed pretty low, what happens is it feels like a lot because that jump happened a little more suddenly than it did over here, right? So it feels like a lot. Okay, and days on market versus sold versus original list price. Days on market, right? From August of 2021, we were about 21 days on market on average. August of 2022, we were 26 days on market on average in LA County. Let's look at 2019, right? 2019, look at that. 40 days on average on market. 40 days on average. 26 days is not that much. It's just not what it has been for the last year, right? So again, you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Why is this important? Because we need to be setting those expectations with our sellers, right? And our clients. Here's the thing. I will still argue that with the amount of inventory on the market right now being similar to what it was in 2019, I would still argue that part of the conversation we should be having with our homeowners at the point of listing is that if we don't have any showings in the first 2 weeks, we are overpriced. If we have showings and we have no offers, we are overpriced. And we need to be putting in those price reductions as part of our negotiation, right? And we need to be pricing correctly for the market that we're in. Now, the secondary part of that is if the home doesn't sell in the first 2 days, like it was for the past couple of years, is that abnormal? No, right? It's sometimes the house is going to take a little longer to sell, and it's definitely going to take more work. If you are the type of agent that for the past 2 years, you put a sign in the yard, put it on the MLS and prayed, that is not enough, right? That is not enough. It was. It's not the same anymore. Now we need to be price watching so that we can make those price adjustments as needed. We need to be promoting it by running Facebook ads in command. You could do postcards in command around the listing to promote it. You can I would recommend doing photos, nice photos, making sure that it's on the MLS. You want to make sure that you're doing open houses, all of these different things that we're doing to promote for that property. And you need to be prospecting, right? And you need to be prospecting for potential buyers on these properties as well, okay? Because putting a sign in the yard and putting it on MLS and praying is no longer enough to get that property sold. And yet setting the expectation that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're not quite at the market that we were. And so your house is not going to look like the Portals line or the In-N-Out line, right? We don't have that many buyers that are on the market right now, right? Because some of them are being taken out of the market on the basis of interest rates. So we have a couple different things that we can do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right? We can adjust price, or we can look at how we can help make this work for the buyers as well. Can we negotiate in an offer that we're going to do a buy down, right? As part of it, that we will accept closing costs, especially if the equity is there, because there is still more equity than there was in 2019. So this is going to be an important place to have a conversation. But putting this in perspective here is also important. 40 days on market was the standard in 2019. Okay, Orange County. Now that I've explained it all a little bit more to you, right? LA County is kind of, we go a little bit most in depth into LA County because I want you to understand what it is that we're going through on each of these trends. Now I'm going to go a little bit over the numbers, but I'm going to show you kind of the highlights that we want to look at here. The biggest highlight I want you to look at is you can see the numbers here in August to August of 2019, right? There was a ton, more than double the amount of properties for sale during this time frame, right? That was a lot of additional properties for sale, and same, we have the property sold was higher here as well. And yet everybody was saying inventory issue, right? Inventory, look at these numbers. Goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, little down, up, little down, up, right? Goes down. This is what we call a real estate cycle. This is seasonality at play. Now, seasonality may be a little bit skewed, right? Seasonality was absolutely a little bit skewed in the kind of last year, right over here, right, during pandemic. But what we know is generally true, is that in the fourth quarter, yeah, the number of listings go down. The number of pendants tend to go down a little bit too. Why? Holidays. People don't like to be moving in the middle of the holidays. Now, you're going to have a very special subset of individuals right now. That subset of individuals is, I want to be in my new home by insert holiday here, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever it is that somebody celebrates. Some people will say, I want to be in my new home by then. And so right now we have urgency that exists on individuals that need to be in their home by a certain day as it relates to the holiday for them. Okay. There's an emotional aspect of that, right, as well. And we know that logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. And yet when the two are combined, in my personal opinion, that's where we have kind of the best of both worlds. We have evidence-based and also the emotion that they have. There is a really great marketing piece as well that I want to recommend to all of you if you are going after sellers. It is, so if you are an agent with us, then in your MLMS toolbox, you have a specific flyer piece that is all about the 11 reasons to list during the holidays, right? That marketing piece, some of you have utilized before, and it's sent out as mail pieces and sent that out to homeowners or to individuals that are in your database and have taken listings from that single marketing piece. Okay, because what happens, they're like, oh, I should list before the holidays. Well, guess what? We're in the fourth quarter. The time to utilize that marketing piece as a mail out piece is now. All right, so this kind of gives you a little bit of where we were. We look at 3 years ago, number of new listings down 32.1% month over month, right? And down 17.3 in terms of properties pending. And then we can kind of see all the fluctuation that occurs. But if we look at, the same year versus the same year 2 years ago, that fluctuation is much smaller here. That fluctuation is much smaller. Okay. Pricing trends, again, number of properties for sale. We've seen more dips, but this sold is fairly, it's going on an upward trajectory still. When we look at the numbers right over here, the number I want you to pay attention to for Orange County, two things, right? Specifically right here is going to be this 47.7% is in that same period of time, right? August of 2019, The average sold price is up 47.7%. Now, if we want to look at the year value, year over year, that's this number right here, the 17.1%, is that from the last 12 months to the prior 12 months, we've still seeing a 17.1% increase in value right over here, right? These two numbers, most important ones, I would argue on this slide. Absorption rate. Again, I want to highlight the same thing I did before, that I want you to take a look at where inventory is right now, where the inventory was in 2019, when everybody was saying that we had an inventory issue, and you tell me what type of market it is, right? Is we look at that inventory. That's going to be an indicator of the type of market that we are in. So I know a lot of people are saying, hey, we're in a buyer's market. We're in a buyer's market. This is why buyer's market and seller's market in a really big way are very much technical definitions, right? Technical definitions that are on the basis of absorption. That's the part of the reason that I don't like using language like, hey, yeah, we're in a buyer's market, or hey, yes, we're in a seller's market, is because a technical definition says that from our absorption rate specifically, that 1 to 5 months of the inventory is considered a seller's market, 5 to 7 is a balance, and 7+ months of inventory is considered a buyer's market. Similar to recession, that is a technical definition, right? Does that mean that it's not a good time for a buyer to buy or a good time for a seller to sell? No, right? Because a buyer should buy when they feel comfortable with locking in that fixed payment, right? Is when they feel comfortable locking in that fixed payment and they're able to afford that. A seller should sell when they need to sell based on life cycles, right? And they should take advantage of when the sold price is high if selling is optional, right? If they are I want to sell, but I don't need to sell, then taking advantage of that equity gain is going to be important. But most people that buy or sell buy on life cycles, right? Somebody passes away, dead. Somebody has a baby and they need to expand, right? Kids go off to college and they need to downsize. All of these different things are life cycles, right, that happen. So again, just putting this in perspective. And days on market versus sold versus original list price. Specifically, so we can see that yes, days on market are up month over month, but days on market August of 2022, 23 days on market, higher than last month, higher than it's been, right over here. Higher than it's been since about early 2021. And yet in August of 2019, before the pandemic, before everything that threw everyone for a loop, days on market was 46 days on market on average in Orange County. So just putting things into perspective, making sure that we're setting those expectations with our clients. Okay, Riverside County, we're going into our lower price point territories. Again, I'm sorry, guys, my slides are a little crazy because I'm trying to get as much of the data on here for you all as possible. But the juxtaposition I want to make here, yes, number of properties for sale is up, nowhere near what it was in 2019, right? Down 27.9% from 3 years ago. Number of properties sold down 25.2% from 3 years ago. This market, it's different from what we've experienced here, but it's not that different from 2019. And in 2019, we were saying it was a good market, right? Riverside County inventory trends, you're going to see the same thing, this up, down, right? Up, down trajectory that kind of happens through here. But when we really look at this, right, what did it look like before? What does it look like? Look at this number right over here, right? 2019 to 2020, and then 21 to 2022, 2 years over 2 years. And there is no change almost in the number of listings that have come on. What has happened is that the seasonality is skewed. So in the last 2 years, compared to the prior 2 years, right, there's not been that much shift It's the number of new listings has stayed at 0. What has happened is the month that they have come onto the market has changed because seasonality was skewed. But this is not that different. And then this is not that big of a jump here, 0.5%, right? But they've happened in different areas. So we always want to inspect what we're expecting, expect what we're feeling on the market right now. And then pricing trends, 2 biggest areas again, right? We've got this average sold price increase here and our current versus same month right over here. These are going to be our important numbers, 47.7%. We can see that increase happening here. And our inventory. There was more inventory on the market in Riverside County over here than there is here. We're kind of matched up. This is fairly even to what it was in 2019. So I would not be surprised if we see now, even though we experienced a little bit of a dip here, right? It kind of went up through here. Days on market. This is higher than Orange and LA County. In 2019, we were at about 50 days on market here, right? And properties were selling at about 96% of the original list price. Properties are selling right now at about 97% of the original list price in Riverside County, which tells us what? Properties are overpriced. They're not selling at 102%, at 103%. Okay, last county, before we get into a couple other things that I want to make sure I share with you today. Again, similar kind of trend point that I want to make sure that I highlight, right? I am highlighting this 3-year data for 2 reasons, but really this is about shifting our perspective on what this looks like when we say, oh my gosh, there's so many properties for sale. Oh my gosh, there's not enough properties selling. I feel like this is down. It's just different than it was in the last 2 years. The last 2 years have been an anomaly market. And we are kind of back to what the true normal looks like of 2019, and kind of getting back to pre-pandemic, kind of major shift in the real estate market timeframe. And so looking at this 3-year data is really important for us to put this in perspective, right? When we look at this inventory trends, same thing, we've got this up and down. Yes, they are down, right? I'm so sorry. I wish I didn't have this last one blocked right over here for you, but this is, you can kind of see with the numbers here, like this is fairly even in terms of the number of properties pending, right? The number of new listings, yes, there is a change here, but it's not super, it's not like a 20%, 30% shift right over here, right, with what we're looking at. So that's important for us to look at as well, right? With our pricing trends, again, this average sold price from 3 years ago, this San Bernardino County especially is a little bit more even. We saw a little bit more peaks and valleys in the for sale price for some of the other counties than we do in San Bernardino County. And yet this trend is still upward right over here as well. We look at 3 years ago, that average sold price is 43.2% higher, right? We look at that year over year, it's a 14.2% increase, right? We look at the 2 years to the 2 years, it's a 39.5% increase in values. If someone is thinking about selling, they want to take advantage of the equity that they've gained here in the last 2 years, okay? And our absorption rates. Now, San Bernardino County specifically, I do want to make that note here, is that in San Bernardino County, the other 3 counties, the absorption rate was all less, right? Was all lower than it was 3 years ago. San Bernardino County is slightly higher, right? Is slightly higher here. So I do want to make that note because this is our lowest kind of price point county of the 4 counties. And so this will be something that we monitor because it is a little bit different from what we're seeing in some of the other markets here. And last but not least, our days on market versus sold versus original list price. Right over here, August 19 to August 22, we were at about 43 days on market. at about 27 days on market right now, right? When we look at sold versus original list price, properties were selling in 2019 at about 98% of original list. But remember, the original list prices have gone up. And right now we're selling at about 97% of that original list price. So important to kind of juxtapose that, kind of change what we're thinking of. Okay. Industry updates, legislation updates. Some of you may know that over the last so this is going to be specific to California because there's a lot that has kind of happened, right? That has kind of happened. On the 28th, Newsom, so Governor Newsom, essentially had a ton of bills, right? These are both assembly bills and Senate bills that needed to be addressed. It was basically like, hey, we have all this list of bills. We need to know if these are passing, not passing, extending, going on, whatever, right? There was a lot of these bills that existed across all different types of things. So some of them were real estate related. Some of them were not. Some of them have to do with climate change. Some of them have to do with criminal procedure. Some of them have to do with budgeting. Some of them have to do with elections. But there was a ton of bills that were set to be addressed. And in reality, this is actually the most bills that we've seen kind of come into a meeting like this, where it's, hey, he needs to either sign them or not, right? So rather than go through each one, because there's a lot, there are some different changes that are happening. And there's a lot of bills. I'm going to be sharing an article with you that comes from the office of Gavin Newsom. And what that article is going to have is that particular article is going to have a list of all of the different bills that were addressed as of the 29th. So I'm dropping that in the chat right now so that you can see it. With that being said, there were some very interesting kind of bills that did come across. We know that there was some bills that happened a couple years ago around being able to, like Senate Bill 9, Senate Bill 10, which were two of them that were issued to kind of create opportunity for more, how do I put it, to kind of rezone certain areas to allow individuals to construct duplexes on what had originally been single family residence. There was a lot of these different things that have come down. So now we know that the governor is stepping up to kind of enforce some of these housing bills that were already on the books as well. And there are some organizations that have been created to kind of target local governments that aren't complying with these state laws. San Francisco was one of the areas that was being investigated around this as well, because they're trying to create more housing, right? And that's one of the things that they're wanting to do. So a couple of the things that have happened in some of the legislation, there was three AB 211, Senate Bill 886, and Assembly Bill 2221, so 2221, that were signed into law as of the 28th. These laws are allowing kind of reforms to allow affordable housing in commercial zones and student housing, and also to create some new legislation around jobs for construction workers. So there's a lot, right? Is AB 211 essentially is looking at underutilized or abandoned commercial properties that could then be changed, right, to create affordable housing under this new legislation. So it's one of the bills that kind of came out as well. There's the other one I mentioned, Senate Bill 886, is a little bit more for certain colleges to be able to build student housing on or near their campuses. And then Assembly Bill 2221 kind of clarifies some of the laws around ADUs, right? so that way they're easier to build, and also allows some opportunity to build an unused commercial space and an existing single family home. So there was a lot of different bills that kind of came out on that list. Those are three of the ones that do have a little bit to do with housing. They're not the only ones. There are a lot more, right? There are a lot more. And with that being said, we'll start reviewing them, but I wanted to highlight those three as well. And then we'll continue to kind of highlight some of the new bills as we see how they're being implemented within our state of California and how they will impact you and your clients. Definitely with allowing some of the rezoning to occur, we should see some of that impact happen in some in the future years. So I just wanted to make sure I highlighted those. Again, the list of the bills is available in the chat for you. And of course, again, on shift, and I'm going to move through this quickly because I know we are at time, my friend. I did want to share, as always, I always promise that I want to kind of end the call with a system around like different elements of how we can lead generate. And the one that I'm sharing today is Jay Papasan's process for audience building with newsletters. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what this looks like. We know that in real estate, we have one job, right? Don't get me wrong. Yes, our job is to sell houses and help people through that process. But our job is also to build credibility with our clients. We know that in this business, whatever your financial goal is directly related to the number of people that when they think of real estate, they think of you first. You are easy to reach, right? You are easy to reach, and they find you credible and trustworthy. In that, and credibility and trustworthy, there's two elements to that, right? The credibility comes from, I trust you know what you're talking about. I trust that you understand the process of real estate at a high level. I trust you understand things that are going to impact me through this process. I trust that you're credible in understanding what resources exist for me out there. And I trust that you have my best interest at heart, right? Now, there's different ways that we establish that level of trust and credibility. Trust that you're going to be that person that does what is best for that family and advises them to the best of their ability. That trust comes from, hey, I care about you. I'm not just trying to sell you things. I know that sometimes the right decision is not moving forward, and I'm going to advise you if that's the case. That generates trust and generates goodwill. With everything that is happening in our real estate market right now, like with the 80-20s that I've talked about again and again as an example, coming to somebody and saying, hey, you're in a bad situation and I want to help to see what options there are, versus going at them and saying, you're in a bad situation and you need to sell your house and you have no other option, right? That's two different things. But one of those comes from being in integrity based. It comes from doing the right thing, which is part of our mission, vision, and values. It comes from caring about people and going through their options. And yes, the option might be that they have to sell their home, but presenting those options is part of how we engender trust. Newsletters is another really amazing tool to engender trust and credibility, right? To give us trust and credibility, to build that rapport. And so Jay Papasan, who is the author of the one of the co-authors of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Shift, The One Thing, Hold, all of the KW books, Shift, Hold, Flip, all of those books, is also a master of newsletters. That's one of the things that he started doing very early on in his career, something that he still does to this day. So the first thing is, and I will know, right, is I want you to assume that all of the different things that you do to lead generate should be also feeding people into your database, where you can use Jay's process for audience building with newsletters as a way to cultivate trust and credibility. Okay, so choose your audience. Who do you want to attract? Or Another way to look at this is what type of lead generation are you already doing? And what is that audience, right? What is that audience that you can now induct into your newsletters? Select your topic. What information does this audience need or want? So let's talk about that, right? If I am a home buyer, what information do I need or want? Might it not be valuable for somebody that is getting nervous about buying a home because of interest rates to understand some of the history around interest rates, or some of the creative financing solutions that we talked about at the beginning of the call, right? Or what are the things that actually contribute to home value, right? Same thing with sellers. What is information sellers want? I love when sellers create super custom homes. In fact, my parents did that when we lived in Bellflower many years ago. My mom is a very colorful individual. She likes a lot of color. She painted every single wall was practically a different color. You went into that home, it looked like walking into the middle of a piñata. We say that all the time. And in reality, you had one wall that was cobalt blue. You had another wall that was like sunset red. You had another wall that was orange, another wall that was yellow. It was a beautiful home. And yet that did not add to the value of a home. Might a seller be curious to know that yes, an upgraded kitchen, top graded for your area, does add value to your home? Your beautiful colors on your wall does not, right? So what is that information that the audience needs or wants? Pick your frequency. Do you need to update and send them newsletters once a month? Is it twice a month? Is it weekly? What does that look like? You also need to be consistent with it. So are you doing it on Mondays at 8 a.m. and it goes out twice a month, right? What does that look like? Pick your frequency and be consistent with it. Now, you can do this in Command. I do a newsletter through Command. It's really simple to do. You just add all your clients to your list and you're able to do newsletters through there as well. If you're doing neighborhood nurtures on your clients, then maybe a once a month newsletter works because that still gives you enough content going out, right? Maybe it's once a week because you want your clients to think of you weekly, whatever it is for you. But also look at what is actually reasonable for you. What do you have time for? What information are you going to include? And what do you have time for? Now, assigning the work. I'm going to note on this, my friends. If you are a solo agent, the who is you, right? The who is you for now, right? The who is you for now. If you are a team, then maybe there's one person that is doing the newsletter for your team, right? If this is something that you want to put in, I would really look at what are you including from a topic base and how can you kind of write that out? Now, what I would also say is this. There's difference between what we call seasonal content or what we call evergreen content, right? When I do a market update for you, right? When I do a market update for you, because this is one of the content pieces that I create for you, my market update is going to be it's seasonal. 1 week to the next, we're done, right? 1 week to the next, the information is outdated. However, if all of a sudden I'm teaching somebody about rate buy downs might be something that is evergreen. It might happen in certain markets more often, but in reality, you can do a rate buy down essentially in most of the time, right? So it might be something that is evergreen. If I'm talking about what are the 4 things that add value to a home and the 4 that don't, that is evergreen content, right? Now, might it change in the future? Sure. But for the most part, that stays consistent for a long period of time. So think about that when you're creating it and then build your tech stack. I'm going to note, my friends, you really don't need as much stuff here. Email platform, I am literally using Command for mine. It is very simple to do. I'm not doing much on analytics, my website or landing page. You can use different things. You have your own website. It's just a matter of creating an opt-in opportunity for your people. What is that going to be? And a lot of things can actually integrate whatever your opt-in is directly to Command. I did that. I used on my quote unquote landing page, which is just a fancy way of saying It's a document where I collect information from people that want to join my newsletter. I use a tool called Jot Form. Up to 10 questions is free, right? So I use that because it's free. I use a tool called Zapier to connect it to Command. And I'm happy to help with that. I'll probably teach a more in-depth class on how to actually do that and what it looks like, my friends. But I wanted to just share this with you because this is Jay's process for newsletter. So always sharing a new kind of system or tool. With that being said, a couple announcements. I want to remind you one more time. Remember, we have that at the KW Cares kind of business event on October 6th that I highly recommend you attend. We are also going to be doing on October 11th at the Downey Association of Realtors. We're going to be doing a fix and flip class. Our trunk or treat is going to be at the end of this month on the 31st. You will see some information go out about that. And we will have a sign up so that you too can sign up to host a trunk. It's a great place to invite your clients to. With that, I hope you all have an absolutely phenomenal day. And I will see you soon. And you're welcome. I see the thank yous come in and on the chat. So thank you, my friends. I will talk to you soon.